Hey everyone, super excited to be speaking with you all here today. We've heard from a lot of important stakeholders so far, but one group we haven't heard from just quite yet is the creators in the context of building the experiences for the metaverse. So I'm joined here by three of the builders of the metaverse who are building incredible worlds that y'all can experience in an interactive way with hundreds of other people. We have Fractillions starting on the left. Matt does design and the Matt Empire here with us. And I'd love to kick it off by you telling your stories of kind of how you got started building in 3D and in the metaverse and kind of what worlds you're currently building in. And so, Nathalie, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fractillions, and I've been building, pretty much I started Metaverse building about a year ago during the first Mona Build-a-thon, and that adventure has made me a lover of world building, and obviously the community as well. These two here have influenced me a hell of a lot, and it's just been an adventure of whole process. I just did a little presentation recently all about it called the Builder's Journey. So it's definitely a journey of being willing to fail a lot and explore and definitely just engage and dive into everything. So I really am always learning and always continuing to love that process. And yeah, I can't wait to continue along that path.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm Matt Bradley. I have a background in video games, so my experience building 3D worlds goes back over 10 years. I have only been building in the metaverse for the last year. I got in, Matt sent me an email about a year ago inviting me to join a build-a-thon, a Filecoin Forum build-a-thon, which I got involved in and ended up winning, and have since just kept building worlds with Mona. And yeah, that's my background in building 3D. I have more of a background in level design than environment building. So that's a bit more about the kind of the journey through the 3D space, the layout of the space, kind of more architectural, I suppose, than aesthetic. But being in the metaverse in the last year has enabled me to explore a whole different range of skills, like 3D environment building, that I have never been able to do before. So yeah, that's really great.
Right. I was one of the few cases where the algorithm actually did me a favor. And Mona's competition came up, and I was going through a phase of sort of moving through trying to finish projects rather than just learn constantly. So I decided to jump in. I usually come from a character background, so I've done a lot of characters in my time. And a lot of the techniques there with optimizing characters to work in games, be it from 20 years ago to now, kind of carried across with designing spaces. That said, the space that I actually entered was the first space that I'd ever really made, and it just came kind of naturally to me. It was a lot of fun just trying to explore how to make and break and expand and figure out the limits of Mona in a way that was really interesting. And that allowed me to, once again, came equal first in the sci-fi section, which was surprising as much as anything else, but definitely life-changing, and then moved on from there. So lots of fun from that.
Well, so glad you're here together on stage here. And, Matt, you mentioned some, kind of technical challenges as it relates to kind of building in these worlds. So we'd love to kind of start with you and kind of go down on, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing as you're building these worlds, and what do you think for those who are maybe less experienced builders, what are some things that you might suggest to them to give a go at?
It's an interesting space because, like, I always get questions from other builders saying, "How do I do this?" But this is 1,000 questions to answer, and especially in any platform that you're building for, VR, web browser, client-based cloud, everyone has a different answer to that question. So it's quite interesting in the fact that there's a step between any industry that you're coming into the metaverse space to look at sort of game design as the thing you have to go through to make any of this work. So I think one of the elements is just optimization, and simple, like top of the level stuff would be like, what is the poly count? What is the material count? And just those two things alone change everything in regards to what you can and cannot do. So you can create like a high quality space that's very small, or a really big space that's quite limited, and just choosing which thing works for you and then designing around that, rather than just going, I'm going to do whatever I want because I can, only to get 2 or 3 frames per second at the end. So designing to that with the knowledge that you have, and then learning the things to get you to the goal that you want is kind of the trick, but also the process. And a lot of it does include the fails that come along with it. But the rewards are equally, if not more rewarding in the end result when it actually works. So it's really good when you get that sort of 40 frames a second at a really nice space.
Yeah, so I guess what you said there, Matt, was really interesting about finding the balance between kind of performance and the quality of the space. So for me, I find that very difficult to like get that balance right, especially coming from a background where, so working on video games where you've got like very high budgets for things, you're building like custom applications, you're not building for a browser. I think that makes a difference. So finding the balance is kind of like a fine art, I think. But yeah, so I think in terms of that, for me, trying to find the way to push the space and keep doing new stuff, that's one of the biggest challenges. But actually, I think that you can do really cool stuff quite easily within the tools that we have, and all the tools are free. And you can quickly upload your stuff to a web page and run around quite fast. So for a new builder, I think I would just say, yeah, go and do it. You can get Blender, or you can even buy assets or download free assets and drop them into Unity, which is also free. And then you can get the Mona tools, which are also free. And before you know it, you've got a 3D space which you can spend time in with your friends. I think that would be my advice to new users.
Well, and Nathalie, you started kind of really kind of fresh when you came into 3D, and you had this persistence to dive on in and just build. And that's kind of expanded across the metaverse, going into your work with Decentraland and elsewhere. As Matt had mentioned, kind of as a new builder coming in, there's a lot of intimidation of like, oh, I'm not good enough to build in the metaverse, or I hit this block. Tell us a little bit about that for you, and also like, what do you kind of for new builders coming in, what do you recommend them?
Yeah, and I think, that's kind of like what my current role at Mona, which is so much fun, because a lot of times I think new builders have to understand sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward. So a lot of it's like, it isn't that you're starting at zero. A lot of times you have to come in way below zero to build up the knowledge base to even understand what Blender is, or Unity, or what Mona is doing. So it's like helping them understand that's like part of the process. And that's just been a big part for me that's helped me. It's like, it's okay. Like, I don't know exactly in the beginning what this was, and the willingness to just dive in, reach out to the community. And also, again, that's kind of my role now, to create engaging, like experiences that help builders come in and be like, we did ideation workshop. Just some people don't even know what to do. So like creating experiences like that, and also bonding with the community, which we're all there to help, which is the best part to me. So having that connection to the community, knowing that all of us are here to help, not just Mona people, but all the builders that are part of it, is really, really helpful. And also just knowing that it's, again, back to that failure. I think it's okay to fail and build up your knowledge to zero is actually a lot of fun. So
I fail all the time as well. So it's not.
I guess having that kind of ability, or that space to say it's okay to try and push and do something new, and maybe it might not be the kind of greatest thing to
yeah, that mic isn't.
There we go. Kind of having that space to try and test and push things forward. Matt, coming specifically from AAA gaming, and your experience at as a level designer, Project Red, Cyberpunk 2077. Was that a similar kind of culture there? And also I wanted to touch on coming from kind of Web 2 games into more Web 3 and building your own worlds and having more of that freedom. There's a little bit of hostility in kind of the traditional kind of gaming industry as it relates to the metaverse and Web 3. And so, talking to some of your former colleagues, I guess what's that kind of like for you?
This is interesting. I think the reason why that is that if you think about it, really, games have been doing what the metaverse is doing now for quite a long time. So there's a kind of inbuilt expectation from gamers that there should be at least a certain quality of I don't know, platform or experience that they're used to. And in many cases, what people are exposed to outside of our bubble is the stuff that is going on at Meta, right? And that's not that impressive. So people are looking at that saying, well, why would I be in this space, or what is interesting for me in the metaverse? And they see that as the example. I don't really blame them for feeling that way, actually. And I think it's on us really to kind of dispel that skepticism and that cynicism by building experiences which are equally or better than games, basically. So people have a high expectation, and we have to really meet that. And I think we're getting there, and there's a lot of teething problems, but I think that in time, we will make it to the same level and then go beyond, because I feel the potential in this space is far beyond what there is in the gaming industry.
And to all you, I guess, kind of as creators coming into this, there, at least from what we've observed, is that there's this new level of freedom as a creator to come in and kind of create unconstrained. And in a lot of the worlds that we're seeing from you and the thousands of creators building with Mona, is that artistic freedom to go and push the boundaries of what's been done before. We're certainly seeing new things that wouldn't make it into a AAA game, or things that wouldn't, kind of meet the razor there. And so, I guess talk a little bit about. Would love to hear kind of Matt before, kind of, and after your work inside of a studio, and then the creative freedom after. Now that you're experiencing kind of on your own as a metaverse world builder full time.
Attacked by flies. The difference, I think, in working in a studio with hundreds of people is that your role is incredibly specialized, right? So you do a small part of the whole production, whereas with Mona, at least the work that I've been doing has been start to finish. So that's like a massive difference, and it's a huge learning process, like the guys have said about how you have to try and fail and then try again. But actually, it's true, and actually it brings you to a much better level. And for me personally, I love that. Like that's a great thing. I really value the ability to work from start to finish on a project. Sorry, this fly is really, I know it likes me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about workflows. We've seen a surge of easy-to-use AI-assisted kind of creation tools, kind of text input to 3D creation. At Mona, we recently launched a seamless material generator using Stable Diffusion. How do you see tools like this impacting your workflows and processes as creators, and where do you kind of see that going over the next couple of years?
I'm terrified and super excited about AI. I think it has a lot of potential to do really cool stuff with smaller developers, kind of like us, where it's just like, I want to create a universe. How do I do that by myself? And AI will allow us to sort of be able to do that with all of the things that we don't have the time, or it's out there, but we have to buy it and all the rest of it. So I think with textures, for example, just being able to say, hey, I want a texture that looks like this, and it'll go, sure, and then that's done. Just saves a lot of time. And when you're a person who does it from start to finish, that really, really makes you understand the potential for the things that you can create in just that small ecosystem. And then if you have a bigger team, you can do things much faster. So you can create those visions and dreams and ideals in a much shorter period of time. Now, what that gets applied to, because it's getting applied to 3D objects and textures and kind of everything. So I'm waiting for that point where someone says, just make a space that looks like this. And it's like, here you are. A little worried about that. But we'll worry about that when we get there. How about you guys?
No, I mean, I just see it like coming from a background in STEM education, it's just another tool in your toolbox. You know, it's like every technology is always evolving, and it's just another really fun ideation tool, you know, and exploring to a lot of people. I've been seeing them using AI in general to just like start the creativity process, you know, and see where it goes from there. But I'm at heart, I love building and creating myself. So it's not like, yeah, it's great that it can do it. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, but it's just a good way to start the process. And yeah, I am curious to see it. I definitely want to explore and play with it, but it's just going to be another tool. You know, it's really about the process and all these amazing tools that allow us to create so much that like just 20 years ago, you couldn't do any of this without a huge team. And that to me is where it gets really cool. So it's just going to facilitate more cool stuff, you know?
I just want to I totally agree with you. I think I see it as a tool as well. For me, I've been using it as part of my process so far, just as a concepting tool, like just put some ideas and get some reference. I think even like simple form, it's really useful, and it enables you to do things that you just wouldn't be able to do before without like concept artists or like a whole team of people. So yeah, it's a facilitating tool for building better stuff, I think. And it's going to get more sophisticated, and we'll be able to do bigger and better things with it, which is kind of scary because, you know, the idea that you can just generate something that would take us months, like in seconds, well, then you can make something even bigger, right? Yeah. So I guess I see it as a good thing. And as a builder, I feel the need to learn better how to use that tool rather than feel fear of it.
And I guess as you talk about scale, as the worlds get larger and more expansive, one of the things that comes up is to kind of unlock that is optimization, and the optimization of assets as more and more assets are included in these scenes, in these worlds. You know, Matt, you touched on this a little bit. Maybe discuss a little bit of what is optimization, and why is it so important for those who are primarily working in like high poly creation fields, such as those who are building architectural spaces in the physical world, getting them in to start to experience the metaverse and expand the amount of space that exists in virtual worlds.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like AI allows us to do stuff really quick, and one of them is not optimized assets. So it's part of the process that a lot of different places are coming into the game development space, being in metaverse or wherever else. And there is that step of, okay, we need to take this amazing asset and put it in a way that allows the browser to make it look good and run well. And there are a lot of steps that are available to do that. So there's the more traditional approach where you'll use retopology, which is basically tracing the 3D object to be lower polygon and cleaner materials and stuff like that. And that reduces the file size, which is important in metaverses because they always have a limit of some degree. So having the ability to manually do it, which takes a lot of time, is useful. But then there's a lot of other tools, and AI is going to even increase that faster, where it's just like, what is it called? Remeshing and decimation. That's the one. So it's like a more automatic, not AI-based, but algorithm-based approach to getting this highly complex asset down to lower polygon counts. And then that would make it run faster, but not as fast as if you did it manually. So it's choosing, once again, how much time you want to spend on that asset to make it work in your space as well as possible, in the deadline that you have, with the resources that you have, and choosing that. And it comes back to the balance of this is the best way to do it with the times that I have. But there's a lot of different approaches to it, and it's very difficult to say this is the one for you when there are 5 or 10, depending on the asset you're creating. So it's quite difficult to say this is how you do it when you get from so many different people. So coming from Rhino and Revit, AutoCAD, these all do not care about poly counts at all. So teaching these people how to optimize those assets is different from coming from, say, if you're a cinematographer or a sculptor, because there's more curves involved, and that one thing alone will change the answer a lot in regards to how you do it.
It's also a fun design challenge. Low poly is fun to make, and it'll improve, just doing little workshops on that is going to make you view how you create things differently. So that's how I approach it. It's like, even though if it's not going to necessarily look super pixelated, it's still going to be a fun way that you're like, okay, I can implement it, like you were talking about far away objects, or how you can implement in part of your design at least. That's a fun way to look at it.
Yeah, I think designing to the skills that you have rather than running away from the things you can't do is actually a really useful way to design your world as you see fit. And low poly can look amazing. With good lighting, like Valheim and other games like that, it's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, that's a lesson for life, I think, Matt.
Thanks.
You mentioned the design kind of process or the design kind of thinking around this, and the collaboration, kind of collaboration with others when creating some of these more expansive, larger worlds. Matt does design. You recently did a collaboration with Coldy on this, and talk a little bit about that kind of collaborative process and spirits when working with a kind of a incredible top tier and more traditional or NFT artists as they created their own world and brought it to life. Can you talk a little bit about that process? With Coldy, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't know if this is a typical collaboration process because Coldy's quite an interesting guy in himself, right? So he's been in NFT space for years, like one of the originators. So he knows what it's like to be at the early stages of something. And I think, yeah, working with him is like a breath of fresh air, really, because he just says, hey, I'm working on this thing. I'd like to build a space. Can we build something? And then I'll go away and build a draft and come back, and he'll ask some small changes, but generally he's just very trusting. But I think with him, the real joy of it is that he sees that this space is exciting and interesting, and that he wants to be part of it. And so he's prepared to give the space to create something really cool that maybe others might not be able to. So he wants to pioneer in this space because he sees the value of that. And I think that's like, for me, perfect as a builder, because it gives me license to build stuff that other people probably wouldn't consider.
Well, and in all of your worlds that you all have created at this point over the past year, you've got to experience others explore your worlds for the first time. And tell us about a time when, I guess, a memorable experience you had with someone else, like interacting with your space either for the first time or entering into a world you created.
Mine worlds are kind of crazy fractal worlds, so people are usually like, what the hell is this? So that's been it's actually great, because usually, like, I come from, again, traditional working in visual arts centers and teaching digital arts, but also like always having to design and do things that other people wanted. So like these worlds that I built I wanted to recreate my sketches, and I just allowed myself to do that. And like, it's seen by when people explore it, they're just like this crazy fractal kind of like the in between order and chaos kind of worlds. And that to me, just they're not able to understand it is, I'm on the right path. That's where I want to be. It's a fun experience. And then they just run around, and like the bliss of like just having people explore and try to find the POAPs I hid that only one person's ever found one of, and they're all still hidden in there. And yeah, so that part to me is just fun. And I've had like different, spaces where we've explored it, and it's it's just fun to see how they engage in it and where they go to. Usually it's that highest spot search. Even if it's not a staircase, they'll find a way. Or I did a world where it's really deep down and it just can keep going down. So either way, but yeah, it's just been a fun experience watching people see where they go and observing in that sense, and just that initial reactions. It's just a blast and fun to do.
Yeah, for me in the metaverse, we built midway through last year the space for the Music Blueprints launch party for Async, which was a NFT project that they put together, and we had an event in there, a live event with a DJ, and it was like a club night in the metaverse, and that was so surreal to be in a virtual space with a DJ, with a bunch of people hanging out, like in a club basically, but in a virtual club. For me, that was really like exciting to see that this feels like something that's going to go somewhere. It's going to be the future. This is how people will interact in a virtual space in the future. So that was cool. That was a really nice moment for me.
I think for me, the weird one that sticks to my mind is telling my mum how to use my space. But just like the concept of W is forward, A is left, like all these sort of things. But she figured it out, and like my mother's never been a gamer. She's like, I've been a gamer from the beginning, and she just didn't understand it from the ColecoVision, I think it was. So yeah, just running mum through, this is what I'm doing now, this is where I'm going, and trying to teach her how to use it over the internet. It was just kind of like a really sweet experience of, yeah, this is a thing you can do now. And she was like, oh, wow. And it was like really, really weird. So there have been definitely situations where it's like, oh, that's really cool. But this is the one that's like, this is the experience that I've got.
I have to add too that I have shown it to my 14-year-old son and my nieces who are the Roblox generation. They're like, yep, they are very native to it. They get it instantly. They're like, okay, another weird creation. They're running around. That has been my favorite experience, showing kids my world, because I get it. They're like, oh, okay, you're building worlds. Cool. Where's the event? Where can I DJ? Where can I create wearables? What's this avatar thing you have? And that's definitely where it gets a lot of fun.
So the kids get it. The kids get where this is going, and the peers of yours who are also building in the metaverse see it and are living it each and every day. But there's so much of the world, a huge percentage of those who haven't experienced kind of some of these creations before. How do you describe to them, as you mentioned, like talking to your mom on like, what do you do? How do you describe this to those who might not have that context of kind of world building?
For me, I guess I try not to make things complicated to my parents, but I guess it helps that I had a background in games. I can just say it's something similar to games, but I guess for people who don't know, like creating a 3D environment, a virtual world, I would go along those lines and see what their reaction is.
Or I go to like real world events, like it's like Burning Man, but in digital space, or something along those lines. A lot of festival goers it is like a giant festival of creation, or a dreamscape, or vivid dream. And most people experience some kind of dream. So in many ways, it's like that.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, but it depends on the age group and their interest level and all these sort of things. Like it's like, okay, you have to design the language around something that they can understand. So with mum, it's like, this is what I'm doing. That was it. But I think the interesting thing with the space is people are coming from everywhere now. And I think games have been moving in that direction a little bit, where you'll get like writers or choreographers or dancers or musicians coming into the space. But I think one of the things about the metaverse is it's not a game. And by sort of saying it's just a 3D space to do stuff. And they can kind of buy into it because it doesn't seem to run on the rules that they've been handed for 20 years in regards to go and kill something, or all the other things that are out there for a very long time. So I think the fact that the metaverse is coming in from a sort of a different angle, which is more social, more event-based, is quite an interesting approach to being able to communicate with these other industries that I think are getting a lot of value out of it. and being able to expand their view into, I don't know, just cool stuff, to be honest. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the under industries bring to the gaming space without knowing they're doing that. So that's cool.
Yeah, I was at a hackathon recently, and that's what pretty much we did. We created a space that was a recreation of the environment of a pygmy rabbit, you know? So it was like, how can you use these spaces as educational components, and everything's downloadable, create the open metaverse out of it. And then, I mean, the whole group that we presented to were like, afterwards, we're really fascinated with how they could apply it to their whatever use case or whatever project they had. So again, it's not just this, like you were saying, there's just so many possibilities.
And it's inherently social, these experiences, as you all mentioned, with those interactions in the worlds, whether it's a kind of a concert-like club experience or something kind of else, more kind of low-key or like that. But I guess over the next year, as the kind of the scale of these worlds expands and the infrastructure improves to support thousands upon thousands of participants, you mentioned kind of those Burning Man type experiences. What do you hope to see in the next year in these worlds, and what do you hope to create over the next year?
So I think, going back to my point earlier, I want to see metaverse spaces which kind of push the boundaries a bit. So I want to see things which do things better in the metaverse than can be done anywhere else. And so that, I think, is like the main potential of this space, and I hope that comes, and that's what I'm working on. So stuff that can really enhance our lives and give us greater capabilities than we would have just in our everyday reality. So that's really what I hope to see in the next year and beyond.
Yeah, I'm excited about metaverse interop events and activities, just like world hopping mayhem.
I think I'm a bit different, actually, because I want to show, and I was talking about how other people are coming into this space. I'd like to see more, like, even personal or private experiences where you can go and experience poetry or singing, or I have this random parody of Welcome to the Internet that I'm trying to do, so people can sort of run in and just experience some bad version of something that's amazing. But I think education, things like therapy, being able to get into these areas that gaming hasn't really been able to get into, I want to see it get there, because I think that's where we'll start utilizing the potential of interactive, interesting social experiences in a way that we haven't really seen with gaming. And a lot of people have tried with gamified education, and I'm hoping that the people coming into this space will maybe do it better. So education is a big thing for me with the information that we have access to now, being able to teach that to kids, to even old people. Like the stuff I'm learning about atoms in comparison to what I learned in high school is like, that's different. Things have changed, and I would like to learn that in a cool way. So. Yeah,
but also like along those lines, like collaborative world building with different software. Like when Metageist and I did a collab in Gravity Sketch, we were like giggling like for an hour. Like it was the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, more of that too, like how to build these worlds together in fun, crazy. That's when like really cool ideas happen, So that's another thing that's.
And for those in the audience or who are watching this a little bit later, kind of as we get a little bit closer to time, what's one piece of kind of closing advice you'd give to a builder who hasn't started building or who might not consider themselves a world builder? What would you say to them to compel them to get started?
Come join us, and it's a blast, and we're here to help and dive into the deep end, and you'll learn to swim eventually, or like I said, make big splashes, and something cool will happen of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just get involved. Like everything's there. You can do it for free. It doesn't take very long. You can create something really cool and just have a blast. I don't know what more there is to say, really. If you're on the fence, what are you waiting for?
I think for me it's mostly about like failing is part of the fun, and learning from others in creative ways allows you to be a better person because you're learning how to deal with your own inability and limits, but then getting past them. So I think any of the creative space is really good for just growing individually on many different directions. And I find that really inspiring for seeing that in the people around me. And even just doing it myself is like, this feels cool when it works. And it took me ages to get there, but it's like when you get it, it's so good. So just, I wish that on everybody is having that really good experience of, I did this, and seeing other people and go, this is amazing. It's just a great feeling all over.
It's fun.
It's fun. Well, thank you all for being here and sharing your experiences building in the metaverse, and appreciate your time, and thanks so much, and hope you all get started, continued building.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.